Hello, good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is November 15th, and thank you for connecting. Thank you for connecting. Please share this with somebody and please give us your comments. We want to connect with you. Hey, how are you doing? Welcome to Vida In at Home. I'm Pris and Johnny. How are you doing? Glad to say hi to you, those of you who are connected. We are so happy to be here. And we are from Mexico City and also where they have traditional dishes. And look, we are transmitting in from our campus in Saltillo, and we're going to hear the third part of Mastermind, our series. And later on, we will have a musical moment from Saltillo. And before uh, starting with Alejandro, please share this link with your family, your friends, and if you want to see the previous messages from this series, you can go in YouTube or podcast. So are we ready? Yes, we'll leave you with Alejandro. Welcome. Mastermind. Change your thoughts, change your life. Hey, friends, I'm so glad to say hello wherever you are right now. M- Even if you're watching this live or after this transmission, we are here at the facilities in the offices of Saltillo. It's a pleasure for us to be here with you, just saying hi to everybody in Mexico City, in Monterrey, and also in Chile, in Vertical Church. So it's we send you a big hug, and it's a pleasure for us to be here. And so, how Johnny and Pris said, we encourage you to share this message, especially this series. We always keep that in mind, but this series is particularly relevant to share with others. Do this, just tag somebody. Let's make this viral so that we can benefit these biblical truths for everybody. Today is the third part of a series of messages that we have called Mastermind, how you just saw in the intro and in this on the screen. And it's very exciting for me. This is a passion, a personal passion for me. And let me start saying the following. Look, our mind, your mind, my mind, is powerful. It has the power to transform the behavior we have, the way we interpret the world, and in general, our uh, uh, our performance and the way we relate to others. Look, well, this week when we were homeschooling, this virtual school, my sixth grader, he was inside this Zoom meetings that are very usual today, and they had invited a triathlete to share with them, motivating the guys, and precisely about talking mentally. And he was talking about two characters about world athletics, and one was this Roger Bannister. He was English, and he broke the first world record that you see there, 3 minutes 59 seconds and 4 tenths, and that was his record. This is an original picture where he crossed the line. And at that time it was thought that it was impossible to run a mile in less than 4 minutes. 41 years 40 years after, we have official times, and that barrier was just broke. The doctors then would say that it was physically impossible to do that, and that it was actually dangerous for the athletes to do that. But only 46 days after, John Landy broke Lannister's record for 1 second, and that gave place for a whole new world of possibilities, because now they concluded that limitation was in our minds. Since then, since 1954, a lot of people have run the same distance, 1 mile, 1.6 kilometers, in less than 4 minutes. So now this person from Morocco, Isham El Garouche, has the new mark, which is 17 seconds, less than 4 minutes. The thing is, that is why this topic is so relevant. Because we all see that our patterns and the behavior we have is determined by our thought patterns, our thinking patterns, the way we relate with others and with the world, the way we see ourselves, and the way we see God, and how we interact with our own faith. And so what we have done in this series is taken some fragments that a man known as the Apostle Paul, and he was an author of the New Testament, and how he wrote about the power that our thoughts have, and the impact in our lives, in the light of what God says. So what we have said is, whatever comes to your mind comes out in your life. So eventually our behavior, triggers my thoughts, trigger my behaviors. You cannot live a positive life with a negative mind. So eventually that has to match. And finally, we have to control what we think, to control what we do. So the passage that we have been using up to now several times during the series has, everything to do with our thoughts patterns. So that is what Paul wrote in one of his letters, to a Greek city called Corinth. And this is chapter 10 of this text. And he said, we do not wage war as the world does. He's not saying we wage as the people. We use with the weapons of God. And regardless of whatever your way of your journey is, God wants to give you weapons to battle in your mind, the weapons of the world. Because we have to demolish arguments of human behavior. It's like you and I, we eventually develop like, uh, walls, that thought patterns that are so strong that everything that we live and we experiment is goes through them. And he finishes saying, we demolish arguments, because that is our tendency to believe lies from others, from circumstances. And so we demolish arguments and every pretension itself against the knowledge of God. We do not have to be prisoners of our lives. The bad thought, the wrong thoughts should be the ones that surrender to the truth that God has given us. And so, look, our brain is continues to be a mystery, but now we know a lot more things than in the past. Because before it was thought that in adolescence, our brain was completely done and there was nothing to be done after that. But with time, scientists, especially neurologists, have noticed that this is there's a new concept that are called neural pathways. We do not only have electrical connections, but also like tunnels and paths, and through which our thoughts go, and something happens and it filters through there. And so the good news is that we can change those patterns, those thought patterns. We can change the neural pathways to think in a different way. It could also be a bad news for that, because if you embrace a wrong thought pattern, false beliefs, lies, they are so used to that, so they end up being victims of those patterns of thought. So, what I want to do today is address a concept of cognitive psychologist, and bring it out to the light, with the teachings from Paul. And let's make it practical, like a formula to operate daily. And this is a job that we can all go through, regardless of what stage of life, where you live, your previous, your childhood, your culture. We can all practice these tools. So the concept is cognitive bias. Cognitive bias, or for just for our purpose today, we can call it the mental framework. So the cognitive bias is basically translated into that we all, that is what cognitive psychology says, we all have mistakes, errors in our thinking. So we have a difficult reasoning, and we end up behaving according to that wrong thought. It's like if I if I wore those glasses besides being ridiculous, like, and if I would go around saying that like everybody looks blue, and it's just not blue, but it's like distorted, and I would continue to say that this is the reality, and you would tell me, Alejandro, what happens is that you have a frame that you are filtering everything, so you are interpreting everything through this filter. So it's the same concept of cognitive bias or mental framework. So a mental framework reveals like maybe two people can live exactly the same situation, but respond completely differently. So facts are not different. It's the filter, it's the frame. It's the frame we all have. It's the frame you've learned. It's the one you have, you filter your thoughts through. And it's the point that they have become walls. Look, I'll give you a couple of examples. Just imagine that your boss, maybe if you're an employee, think about your boss gives feedback to two employees, to co-workers, and he says exactly the same good a good tone, the same way to address, but one of them goes out of there grateful for that conversation because he has now seen something that he had not before, and he will have great development. And the other one gets offended, and because he thinks that his boss has something against him, and we all filter through our cognitive bias. So the difference is not the facts. The difference is the filter, the frame, his mental frame. So now I want you today to go deeper into that frame, to that concept of mental framework, because it can also affect our relationship with God. Think about it for a moment. If you were one of those people who had an earthly father that was loving, firm of course, but very loving, very close to you, that he knew you, probably now that you have a relationship with your heavenly father, you interpret that God is a God that is close to you and that he is involved with you. But if you grew up with an earthly father that was rigid, that was demanding or cold, maybe today you are struggling with the idea of that God does not care about you or your issues because he maybe has something more important to worry about, right? So the point is the mental framework that we develop affects the way that we see the world, that we relate to others and to ourselves, and finally how we respond to whatever happens, whatever the circumstances are. So now I want to put it in a practical tool that consisting of 3 steps that I'm going to give you at the end of the message. So I want to go deeper in this concept. I'm going to put it here. We have the daily challenge of reframing our perspective. Reframing our perspective. So that means creating a different way of looking at something just by changing the minute. I'm going to illustrate this. Look, imagine a child that tells himself that he is the best batter in the world. He has a baseball bat and a baseball ball and a baseball ball, and he knows. So he just says strike one. I didn't get it. Uh, I still have two more opportunities, and a lot of good batters do not get it on the first time. But he made the second strike, and look, it doesn't matter. I still have one more chance, and then he doesn't hit the ball, and he says, I'm not I'm not only the best batter in the world, but I discovered that I am also the best pitcher because I just punched out the best batter in the world. So he gave a different meaning to the same fact. So he processed it here. There are other names that are giving to reframing the cognitive bias is perceptual accentuation, cognitive restructuring, or just how we called it, just thinking different. You and I know you and I know how to put, perceptual accentuation. Sometimes those of us who are parents, sometimes we see our we sometimes think that our child, is the best. You and I know what perceptual accentuation is. So what I do to illustrate this, I have a frame here. Well, I have a frame here just talking about reframing, because if I would ask you, how will your day be tomorrow? What kind of day will you have? Maybe you can answer, I don't know, Alejandro, because I don't know what's going to happen. But nonetheless, we can pick. If we can have positive expectations, God is going to do something extraordinary. He's going to bless me. Others are going to help me. I'm going to take advantage of that and the opportunities He gives us. Or you can answer, no, and for sure it's going to be horrible. If it's going to be just like last week, this is going to be even worse. We ended that business. We have clients from the claims from the clients. I had a bad time with my boss. This will be pathetic. The point is, what kind of day will you have? The answer, really comes to depending on your framework. If you focus on the positive, or if you focus on what is harmful and terrible. So talking about this concept of framing our thoughts or reframing our thoughts, that the Apostle Paul, incredibly, 2000 years ago, basically, he was already speaking about what is widely known as in cognitive psychology, about this concept, reframing. You know what? Like, Paul was like the king of reframing. He always took this negative situation and he was capable of seeing the positive in it. He was the writer of the most part of the New Testament, and besides that, Apostle Paul, he had a passionate commitment to spread the good news. That's what he called the gospel of Christ. So a frequent prayer of Paul was, help me spread the good news with sharing our faith, because this can transform the world, and it can transform each person. So he identified, he was a man of prayer, he was passionate of Christ, and he was a very strategic man. He identified that Rome, being the capital of the Roman Empire, he was going to Rome to share with the leaders the message, and then he thought that this would be spread out to the whole world, and that was a frequent prayer of the Apostle Paul. But although he did get to Rome, it went not like he anticipated, but he was taken prisoner in a prison, a very small place, and he was taken care by Roman officials in that prison, like 24 hours a day, which could have been a natural answer by Paul, talking about mental framework or reframing. Which could have been an answer. Look, I'm going to give you a fake and imaginary answer, Paul, here. Maybe he could have written, I want you to know that everything that has happened here sucks. I want to quit because I planned this, I prayed for this in such a way, but exactly the opposite happened. I am suffering here, I'm very unhappy, I'm in a Roman prison. If we would translate to our experience, respect our own faith, regarding our faith, this would be something like, oh no, after all, with this pandemic and this crisis and this year, I just wanted this to end 2020. I quit. I would not no not go to my small group, and if we are face to face going back to the church, and I'm not going back. But this went all down the drain. But Paul did not answer like that. His first words, taken from a letter that he wrote while he was prisoner, in some followers of Jesus in Philippos, and he said, now I want you to know, brothers and sisters, that what has happened to me has actually served to advance the gospel. As a result, it has become clear throughout the whole palace guards and to everyone else that I am in chains for Christ. Look, he had a guard, changing every 8 hours, and he was preaching and preaching and preaching because he knew that they were influential, the guards. And so the believers outside know that I'm in chains because of Christ. And in other words, he's saying that, my friends, it seems that this is a tragedy, but you know what, this is not that worse. And the truth, the result of that experience, that being prisoner, and he says that, and because of my chains, and it is because I am a prisoner, that most of the brothers and sisters have courage to spread the word. You know, God, Paul said, God continues working. He is not going to stop. Regardless of what happens, we need to reframe our thoughts, to identify, not to make up imaginary things, but what is really happening, and that is good, because bad things are happening, but at the same time good things are happening. So in these last few minutes that I have, I want to share with you three ways of reframing your thought your thoughts, to focus on whatever is positive and constructive, instead of being focusing on the hurtful or damaging. Okay, the first thing is to thank God. In our daily practice, we need to thank God for whatever did not happen. You may be thinking, Alejandro, how this is the reality. How can I do that? My salary has been reduced in maybe 10, 15, 50%. But I could tell you, maybe you could have lost your job. So thank God that you still have a job. Maybe another person, okay, yeah, but I did lose my job. But I can tell you that you can be thankful, even if you don't have a job. Maybe no, you not have the time to launch that company that you didn't have time. And maybe you say, okay, I did launch that company and it was a failure. But you can notice that there's always a possibility of things being worse. So be thankful to God for what didn't happen. That is a very practical way of reframing our thoughts, of reframing your thoughts. So that reminded me maybe a story of a college girl, that came to their parents and tell them, you know what, I have to give you some news. Some weeks ago, when I went out of school, I went to a bar. We drank, and we got very drunk, and we went out of there and we did things, and now I'm pregnant with twins. The good things, that the daughter keeps telling her parents, their jaws are up down the floor. The good thing is that he is in probation. He cannot get work. He's in the rehab process, and so we will live together. So we will raise the child together. The the parents are almost fainting. And now she says, no, 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 that was a joke. What happened was that I failed most of my subjects from college. But I just wanted to tell you that things could have been worse. This might seem ridiculous or funny, but you know what? The point is that things can always be worse. This can happens to happen to everything. Be thankful to God for whatever did not happen. So, uh, uh, number two, practical way to reframe our thoughts. Practice pre-framing. Pre-framing before you are in that situation. Don't wait until you're there. No, no, no. Do it previously. That makes me think that the person that I know in my small world, that my mom, Gloria Mendoza, is the queen of pre-framing. Being a single mom, she could have made the worst out, but so now she responded that she will now have a clear focus in her life. I will take this kid, I will raise him. But 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 when she came here to us, we know, most of you know that we are Venezuelan. She contracted two types of different cancers. So her pre-framing, regardless of the diagnosis, I am going to focus on what is really matters. And if this illness gives me that opportunity, I will do it gladly. And after this, uh, 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 then after this, she was diagnosed with an illness that made her deaf. And it was very dramatic after overcoming two cancers. And now she is deaf. And you know what? And now she's saying that now she can sleep well because she doesn't hear anything. And I thought she was joking, but no. You know what? And then the last thing that has happened, she has a lack of calcium as a result of chemotherapy, and her teeth are falling out. And so I didn't know that. And she a tooth fall out. So she came to me and she smiled and she told me, you know how much is going to the fairy tooth is going to bring them. And I was thinking, like, you know what, I I am just so amazed at my mom, how she learned how to do a pre-framing and determine how she will focus. And so now I will end how to reframe your thoughts. And the last thing is, look for the goodness of God in everything. This is the third thing. Not only thank God for what not happened, not only predetermine how you are going to react, pre-frame your things, but look for the goodness of God in everything, because your attitude is going to change everything. It's going to change the way you feel. It's because they are the result of your mental framework. Look, what you're looking for, you will find. If you are looking for bad things, you will find them. If you are looking for badness, you will find that. If you will are looking for critics, you are going to find them. That is what any counselor or therapist a good therapist or counselor would tell you. Focus your thoughts in what is convenient, correct, and appropriate for you. So this takes me to finally tell you, look, I'm telling you that down deep, you want your life to be better. We all want that. Nobody, that is sane wants something that is self-destructive or harmful for yourself or your loved ones. But we do have two options. And let me illustrate this. And I'm going to finish with this. Think about the difference between a vulture and a hummingbird, besides their physical characteristics. A vulture, what does it look for? It looks for dead animals. It looks for waste, and he finds that. But the hummingbird looks for the nectar and sweet and sweet things and nice things, and he finds those. What is the difference? Whatever you're looking for. This is my prayer for you. Rounding up this message, the third one from the series, embrace the fact that your thought patterns determine the way you live. And it is possible to reframe your thoughts doing these three things. Doing these three things. So I would like to pray for you and round up this message. Lord, I want to give thanks to you because it's incredible that 2000 years ago a man talked about this so clearly about the impact that our thoughts have in our behaviors and our emotional responses and the way we look at and interact with the world. Please help us embrace this concept that was established by Paul, that was modeled by Paul, being a reframer of our thoughts. So, to decrease the bias and focus on things that are good, nice, and good. Please help us all because we're all in the same journey. In the name of Jesus. Amen. Hey, look, friends, before going to the musical segment, you're going to love these two songs. And please, I want to encourage you to get involved there. They are here to I would like you to enjoy this. Music is powerful. Just if you're there at home, you can sing out loud and you can raise your hand. But before that, I want to do something else. And I want to give my thanks to you, especially for your generosity and all of you, financial generosity, because it's because of that we can continue doing what we do. And more importantly, hear the stories of transformed lives. And I'm going to read a message from a woman that has connected to our church during the pandemic. So she doesn't know the physical facilities. She's here in Saltillo. She wrote to us. She's connected in different environments in Vidain. The question was, what does Vida represent for you? She came to us in a tragic moment. She had just lost her small girl. She died, and she said, Vidain has accompanied me in the necessary way that I required in that circumstance. That gave me strength. I came here heartbroken, mad at God, and not believing in His power, and disappointed by my life partner. Imagine that. Vidain has led me to have a new relationship with God, with my partner, and it has changed my concept of death. For the hope that I had of getting to know my girl again, and she was connected to a lot of different environments in small groups and different environments here to go through this difficult experience. And how can we do it? Because of what you give. I'm not exaggerating when I say that every week we have this kind of stories. I encourage you to do it together with your finances and mine. We can continue to do extraordinary things, to continue listening stories of transformed lives like this woman's. It's good to know that we are loved uh, with this God that He made you, and He gets everything out of the way to love you and to embrace you. And so, thank you for being here with us. Next Sunday, we are closing this series. Share with this and have a great week.